All right, Krystal, what's on your radar?
Well, one of my favorite pastimes of the Biden era is watching Fox News spin their wheels in an attempt to vilify Joe Biden. It's really an extension of a pastime that Sagar and I both enjoyed during the general election, watching Republicans and the Trump team outdo themselves in coming up with the silliest possible critiques of Joe Biden. It's an exercise that ended, of course, with Democrats having control of the White House, the House, and the Senate. But this latest attempt from Fox News may be my favorite entry into the category yet. Now look, there are plenty of legitimate ways to criticize Joe Biden based on what he's actually done. His campaign promises on student debt, public option in healthcare, and a $15 minimum wage, they seem to have just disappeared completely, even though he could have accomplished all three by now. But the GOP opposes all of those extremely popular and good things, so they don't exactly want to get into a conversation about wages, debt, and healthcare. They could talk about his unconstitutional bombing in Syria and apparent unwillingness to end the forever wars, as Sagar covered today. But the GOP is equally complicit in handing the entire government over to the military-industrial complex, so they don't exactly want to talk about that one either. There's also his pledge to restore the soul of America and root out corruption, bring a new era of sunlight, good governance, and transparency, which has also fallen by the wayside as he has brought in a team of millionaires who've sold out to Wall Street and corporate America. But yeah, that one's going to be awkward for a completely corrupt Republican establishment too. So instead, they're going with whatever this is.
Tomi, what's your reaction to this hypocrisy, this disgusting hypocrisy? Go ahead.
Well, again, we all feel sorry for Joe Biden. Nobody wants to see anybody struggle, ever. But the double standard is the only standard of the left. We're not supposed to talk about mental acuity. We're not supposed to talk about mental stability. But the fact of the matter is this. The left is going to dump Joe Biden in 5 months, maybe 6 months, put Kamala in, as we all knew. But we were never supposed to talk about this, Judge. We were never supposed to hint at this, that Joe Biden maybe not be up for the job, and now it is perfectly clear. And we would never talk about somebody that was clearly mentally unstable, maybe somebody that was struggling. We would never talk about this, except for the fact that this is the president of the United States of America. We have every right to talk about it. We have every right to be concerned.
I want to hear from his White House medical doctor. And finally, the worst thing that could ever happen in this country is Kamala Socialist Harris become president. That is a horrible decision.
He is a puppet, a shadow president for the far left. They will toss him out. They will dispose of him just like they planned to for months. And we were all supposed to sit back and say, oh, we're shocked this was happening. People like me have been saying this for months on end. We knew this.
Joe Biden is not running this country. Tommy's absolutely correct. It is being run by a circle of socialists. Why do you think AOC and Bernie Sanders are so happy? Because they are controlling the White House right now.
Kamala Socialist Harris. Oh my God. Now, there is a lot to admire about this segment. First, you got to respect how they start by accurately actually pointing out the mainstream media hypocrisy of obsessing and speculating about Trump's health, but then they immediately do the exactly the same thing to Biden. Arguably, in fact, they go even further, claiming that this video of him falling up the stairs proves he's not even really president. It's pretty simple, guys, on the hypocrisy front. I don't actually think talking about the health of the most powerful man in the world should be off the table. But if you didn't do it with Trump, you can't do it now. And if you did do it with Trump, then you better have something to say about Biden's fall now. Judge Jeanine and co. are calling out the mainstream press's hypocrisy while also engaging in the exact same hypocrisy in real time. But the part, of course, that really drives me nuts is this insistence that Biden is being controlled by AOC and Bernie Sanders, who are apparently in league with Kamala Harris. Listen, Tomi, you are absolutely correct that if the left could dump Joe, we would, but it wouldn't be for Kamala Harris. Not in 5 months or 5 million years. The woman stands for so little that she couldn't even settle on a campaign slogan in a campaign that didn't even make it to the primary. She abandoned Medicare for all, abandoned monthly recurring checks, abandoned the minimum wage, and built her career the same way Joe Biden did, basically, by locking up poor people and letting Wall Street off the hook. Don't be so stupid as to think that just because idiot media people say she's progressive, that she actually stands for a single thing. And by the way, the idea that the left controls anything is so silly, it's insane. The Democratic establishment despises the Bernie and AOC left even more than they hate Trump. Honestly, Trump was good for business as far as they were concerned. They would rather have Trump in the White House all day long than let Bernie Sanders run anything. That the left has next to zero institutional power and also zero willingness to use the guerrilla tactics they would actually need to accomplish anything. Yes, at the grassroots level, there is plenty of energy, but the elected leaders never throw their weight around to accomplish leftist goals, like literally never. Not on Medicare for all, not on student debt, not on minimum wage, nothing. Bernie Sanders put out an entire op-ed with a whole agenda of programs that he wanted to pass through budget reconciliation. The Biden people didn't even pretend to care what he had to say about it. Biden casually abandoned the one promise he made to Bernie in the $15 minimum wage. Everyone just meekly fell in line. What's more, if the Democratic establishment really was dying to have Bernie in charge, then they could have just not screwed him over in the primary. They didn't need some elaborate plot to install Joe Biden and really have Bernie and AOC run the show. They could have just let Bernie and AOC run the show. They didn't do that, did they? Now, sadly, a lot of people probably believe this crap because they know there's all kinds of actual nefarious plots going on in our government. And so if it sounds vaguely conspiratorial and devious, it has the ring of truth. It's just that, unfortunately, none of those real conspiracies are to have shadow President Bernie Sanders work behind the scenes to get everyone health care. Quite the opposite, in fact. If you want to do a real segment, talk about the conspiracy of the health insurers and the Koch network mobilizing to guarantee that our current healthcare hellscape remains in place. Because the truth is literally the exact opposite of a socialist takeover. But hey, if there's ever a real plot to get people healthcare, jobs, and decent wages, please let me know how I can help. I can guarantee you Kamala Harris will have nothing to do with it. And Sagar, it's one of the parts that actually annoys me the most, which not just Fox News does, but mainstream media as well. They'll lump people like Kamala Harris or Cory Booker in with the actual left and pretend like they're progressive. I'm like, what progressive thing is she actually fought for or fighting for today?
Do you remember how she was the most liberal senator in the Senate?
Oh my God.
And
more liberal than Bernie. Or oh my,
what are you talking about?
Right.
But no, this is the part of our problem is we do not have the correct political language to describe people like Kamala and Cory Harris who are pretty far left on race and gender ideology and quite center whenever it comes to, I have a word for it, which is neoliberal, right? I think that's actually a pretty perfect way to describe it. Identitarian and obsessed on one end, and then committed to a corporate ideology economically. Actually a very natural marriage of the elite Democratic Party and elites in mainstream center-left in general in America. But the way that Fox and others, this is another thing I've actually spoken with some Republicans about, which is that they far overlearned the lesson and the use of the word socialism in Florida because they think that when Cubans and other Latinos in Florida come over and vote in historic numbers for Republicans, that they're against more socially democratic economic policy. But then at the same time, a $15 minimum wage pass. So what were they really voting against? I stole this from Ross Douthat. They're voting, when they hear socialism, what they're really analogizing is chaos in the streets. That's what people were voting against whenever they, and that is the animating message of socialism. So once again, look, these people, it's all for show. It's all just kabuki theater, and they don't know what socialism means. They're all it's just throwing, things to people and using words as boogeymen, which have no meaning whatsoever. And they're really believing their own BS at a certain point because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And really what that shows you is, why they're focusing on Kamala? Because Biden is boring. That's what they're trying to turn her into a thing. And Kamala Harris is a terrible politician. She couldn't even make it to Iowa. So they're really just SOL. That's why their ratings are all down, because they have no villains, and they're trying to conjure one up, which is not in reality, and you could see it in the polls, or you could see it in the ballot box in 2020.
The idea that Bernie and AOC are controlling the Democratic Party is so hilarious to me, because they go out of their way. Nancy Pelosi trashes AOC all that. They despise it. She didn't even get the committee assignments that she wanted. They do everything to kneecap Bernie Sanders. They try to make Neera Tanden basically his boss at the OMB. So the concept that they love Bernie Sanders and that's what they really want is just the polar opposite of reality. And by the way, very different from how Donald Trump positioned himself in 2016 when he would acknowledge Bernie got screwed and he's the anti-establishment and that's why the Democrats didn't want him. And that was an effective message. Now this thing is just a mess because the bottom line is they don't actually stand for anything at this point. All they are is partisan cheerleaders. And so they'll stitch together these conspiracy theories and this messaging that just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And by the way, She made a really specific promise there, or prediction, that Kamala Harris would be inserted into the presidency in 5 or 6 months. Do you think she's going to pay any price when that doesn't come true?
That's just as bad as the whole 25th Amendment, Mike Pence, level stuff. This is just conspiracy. Again, this is just outlandish. It shows that they're grasping at straws. They desperately need ratings. And it's a conspiracy theory which has been there for the entire time. And it's just completely false. And yeah, like nobody pays any price for floating these things.
And look, if it's true, you better bring some evidence.
Oh, yeah.
Other than a video of Joe Biden stumbling, he's a freaking, 78-year-old? How old is he?
Yeah,
However old he is.
Very old.
Right, of course, occasionally he's going to stumble.
Yeah. All right.
Anyway, coming up, Jennifer Holdsworth Karp and Rachel Bovard are going to join us for Team Rising. That is next.